listening to Chris Talks Cars on Cartoon Channel. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Chris Talks Cars. This week, I am joined once again by my faithful co-host, Mr. Brandon Cole.
Hey, guys.
We are just talking about some Mustang facts at the moment. Ford announced, as probably everyone guessed, that they're going to discontinue the GT350 after the GT500 came out. But good news for me. Why do you think
they wanted to discontinue that? As good of a car as it was.
I don't know. Actually, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's saturation of the market.
If it's rivaling, say, like the SRT, the Challenger, or the SS, or is it rivaling like a ZR1 Camaro?
I don't even know, because horsepower wise, like, it's not close to anything. Like 526 is really not much higher than a base GT. And once you start getting into blown, 6.2 liter LSs, the horsepower difference just skyrockets.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably what it was. It was probably like in its own class. Like if you really just wanted a good sports car, you could get it a lot cheaper in the GT or the SS or the Scat Pack.
Well, I think it's more the track orientation of it. Like it's lighter and nimbler than an SS for sure. So
how many people want to track, like a legit track car? I mean,
very few, at least here.
Unfortunate. Very cool car. I was a big fan of it. But
yeah,
the spirit lives on, right?
The Voodoo lives on. The motor out of the 5.2 liter Voodoo engine that's in it is going into the new Mach 1, which is exciting.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Is the Mach 1 is that a new thing for this coming year? Because they haven't been making that since early 2000s, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have a release date yet. Also, the article I'm reading is from June, so
I'm seeing like productions from basic Mach 1s, 1969 to 79. They had a 2003, 2004, and then I guess there's a 2001. So I guess they haven't made it since 2004 is what I'm seeing here. I'm kind of excited about it. Not really my type of car, but I did really like what they did with the older, like 2003, 2004 Mach 1s.
That shaker hood is one of my favorite Mustang features ever.
Yeah, and it was really cool. And I mean, the car itself was pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't anything over the top crazy, but at the time, the engine, that little 4.6 was cranking out, I think somewhere like 305 or something like that, 320-ish horsepower.
Let me pull up the wiki real quick. Yeah, and
it was like, it was almost basically a Cobra engine, like a naturally aspirated Cobra engine. They had a 4 valves per cylinder, as opposed to I think at the time, a 3 valve in the basic GT.
Mm-hmm.
So it had really good flowing cylinder heads. They upgraded a lot of things in there. I'm a real big fan of just the way they set that entire car up, and I'm surprised it didn't really live on. I don't know if they're just trying to do short runs of this, like they have.
That's the only thing I can think of with like that and the GT350 is they're just trying to maintain like not exclusivity, because you see a couple of them a week depending on where you're at, but they're also not completely flooded the market like your V6 or now turbo 4-cylinder Mustang.
Right.
But I pulled up the wiki for the Mach 1, and I can't imagine this is true for just the Mach 1, but you want to talk about some engine options, bro. Back then, there was a 5.8 liter Windsor 2-barrel H code, a Cleveland 2-barrel H code, a 4-barrel 351, another 4-barrel 351, Windsor and Cleveland, same, right? So you had two variants for what looks like, so you had two versions of the 2-barrel, two for the 4-barrel, a 390 with a 4-barrel, and then the 428s, the Cobra Jets.
There you go, the Cobra Jet,
7 liters, baby. So that was just one generation. That's crazy. They had that many options.
Yeah, those are all, in my opinion, pretty legitimate engines. I'm a big fan of the Windsor engines, but I mean they're basically truck engines. But I think it's because they're kind of like the LSs of the time, kind of like the small block Chevys. You know, they just had a lot of aftermarket support for it, so you could do a lot to them.
Right. Yeah. And then they took an unfortunate styling turn in the 70s, in my opinion, at least, like the big swooping or like the fastback, which I don't dislike fastbacks. I don't know. It's very 70s, which
about it. It's definitely got a classic look to it. Normally I like that, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of old Mustang styling.
Yeah. Like even the early ones. Yeah, like I appreciate them because of what they represent, the origin of the American muscle car, but stylistically, never a big fan. Now, the fourth gen, like you were talking about, the early 2000s, that is pretty classic to me.
Yeah, no, it has a great look to it. I mean, especially for the time. It's just the decals and the of course the hood scoop had exclusive wheels to it. I think it had that painted spoiler on the back.
Yep, the two-tone. Yeah, and 305 horsepower.
Yeah,
in 2004.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Thinking back at the time, I mean, that was pretty good. But golly, even the Camaro like Z28 was making, like, on paper it made 325. I think realistically it made more like 340, 350. Probably another reason why it wasn't that successful.
Are you talking about the 03, like the F body Camaros?
98 to 02, and they had the LS1 in them. They rated them at like 325, but I think later on they basically were like, it's the exact same engine that's in the Corvette, so they couldn't, like, every part's entered like matching numbers on it. So it was basically it had the same power as the Corvette, but they just said it had less, just for sales points, because people don't want to like be like, well, why would I buy the Corvette when I'm getting the same amount of power?
Dude, that's my theory about why GM probably smacked Camaro's dick in the last decade, because they were putting out some absolute rippers, man. Jesus Christ. Like, what was the ZL1? 600 and something horsepower?
It's like 650, something like that.
Yeah,
that was like 10 years ago or something like that. Or
right. Well, they had the Z28 out. Yeah, the Z28 was ridiculous. So
that had the 7-liter, right?
I think so. It had.
Yeah, I believe it had the 7-liter.
At the time, the widest front tires of any production car, either.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of hype about when the new Z28 came out, because it actually beat I hate saying this so I say it wrong, but like the Nürburgring, it actually beat the GTR around it.
Wow.
Everybody was upset. We're like, well, yeah, you put a set of slicks on a GTR and it's going to click off times like that as well. But yeah, the Z28 came with these real sticky tires. So but I mean, it was a legitimate performer, though. It did extremely well.
Yeah. So the new ZL1, to compare to the Shelby, like we were just talking about, 6.2 liter supercharged V8 versus a 5.2 liter naturally aspirated V8, 650 horsepower, 650 foot-pounds of torque versus the Shelby with 526 and 429.
These are the new Mustangs.
That's the current GT350 and the current ZL1.
Okay. So what are we getting with the new Mach 1?
I don't know. I didn't read too much. I mean, obviously the limited edition stuff like the decals, and they're only making a few thousand of them, so it won't be.
You get the. Well, see, it's saying, maybe it's not going to get that flat plane crank. So it's saying here that the Mach 1 didn't get the
that's the Ford article, but it's from June. So, like, maybe it's changed in the last couple months. Because I got it from Matt DeAndrea, and he's a pretty legit source. He's not just some dude.
I mean, the whole idea behind the flat plane crane, you can do overhead cam setup. It sounds pretty great, and I think it obviously did good for that GT350. But realistically, the Coyote is just so successful, no matter what it's in. If it's the F-150 or the Mustang, it's proven to be very reliable. It can make a ton of power, basically on a stock engine, and it has exceptionally good flowing heads. And it's just for being the smallest engine in its class when it's competing against the Challenger's 6.4 and Chevy 6.2. I think it pretty much never makes more power than them, but just the fact that it's actually like right there, right on their heels with a 1.2, 1.4 liters less engine is, in my eyes, that's pretty impressive. So, why not just keep using this, keep improving it? I think like 2 years ago, they finally got a direct injection.
Right.
I think they were still using port injection before then. So, that was a huge upgrade. I saw a lot of tuning stuff on it. You can do a lot more with it. So, in my eyes, it would just make sense to go ahead and just keep using this thing. It's so proven, and I think it's gonna live for a while in the Mustang until probably something turbo takes over, or maybe they want to go bigger displacement, or just electric engine is going to take over eventually. So who knows if anything's going to come between that.
I'd like to see Ford come out with their own Corvette. Like the GT500 is their closest Corvette competitor, but there's the GT, right, which is a supercar essentially, as far as category. You're not going to get super stoked if your GT beats a Corvette.
I've thought about that many times over the years, and I never really understood why they never wanted something specific to take on the Corvette. Nothing bad about the Mustang.
But it's a
really
pony
great
car. It's a 5 passenger. It's not a dedicated 2-person race car, basically.
Yeah, and Ford's always been kind of sensible in the matter, and maybe it just doesn't make sense to sell it. It's
right.
not
I'd have to assume that's the reason. Yeah,
I feel like Corvettes, they're probably a small moneymaker for the company, but more so it's it builds their brand. It's we have this. So it gets the Chevy crowd hyped, because even though they can't afford it or don't own one, it's just oh yeah, Corvette has this. Chevrolet has this. And I'm a Chevy guy, whatever.
Right.
That seems to be a lot of what I see, especially in the redneck community. There's just these diehard brand purists. I used to buy into when I was younger. I don't care anymore. It's I just care about what's good at the time for that year model on what I can afford, and then I'll be a Chevy guy, a Ford guy, a Mopar guy, whatever. I don't really care. I won't probably ever be a Kia guy, but
yeah. Let's go ahead and just take that one off the table now. Although they really wait, what's that?
That's exactly what I was about to say. And I was actually thinking about that earlier this week. I was driving around. I saw this. I was like, damn, man, that's a good looking luxury car. And I keep doing this, and it ends up being Kias and Hyundais. And I'm like,
the Genesis brand?
I don't know. There's,
that's their high end stuff.
I'm talking about even their SUVs and stuff. Everything that they make is not shitty looking like it used to be. I remember 10 years ago, if you saw a Kia going on the road, it's okay, that guy either one has no idea what he just bought because he bought a piece of crap, or two, they don't have enough money to buy a good car. And so that's when I thought of somebody that owned a car like that. And nowadays I'm just I don't know. This new stuff hasn't been around long enough really to be proven or anything, but they look good. They look like good luxury vehicles now. I'm not going to go buy one, so don't get me twisted or anything, but they've definitely come a long ways in the last 10 years.
Well, I was going to say I just lost it. What's their little sports car?
It was the Genesis, right?
Well, the Genesis is is their luxury brand, right? It's like their Lincoln.
Like two-door coupe.
Yeah, Stinger. There it is. Yeah, they had their twin turbo all-wheel drive. Yeah, so they yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the fully loaded version was a turbo 6-cylinder all-wheel drive.
Oh, I was under the impression that it had like a small V8 in it, but I could be wrong.
Oh no, I'm almost positive.
I really don't know much about it. I really don't know much about it. I read like a brief article on it a while back, and I was like, it's kind of cool that Kia has something like this now. They're finally a 0-60 4.7 seconds. Rear wheel drive available, torque vectoring all wheel drive. That's pretty dope.
They are not cheap though. The 2021 Stinger GT2, which is their top of the line, starts at $50,000.
Starting point, yeah. I mean, they look like they're not a cheap car at all, for sure.
Yeah, that's rough, man. I don't know if I'd drop $50,000 on a Kia right now.
Yeah, 365 horsepower. Yeah, I think you definitely get a lot more out of like if you wanted $50,000. Like
yeah,
this, I would go for like a Charger or something.
Well, I mean, if you're in the like small displacement all-wheel drive sector, then
that's true. You're an all-wheel drive.
Audi, I think like $50,000 worth an Audi is going to get you something that's going to shit all over that Stinger. I bet.
I believe the Ford the Taurus SVO starts in the like mid to low 40s starting price. So I think I might rather have that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, well, that's the mistake I made with the Volkswagen, right? Like I don't regret my Golf R. Like it was fun, but if I would have known that day I was going to spend $40,000, like I probably would have ended up with something else.
That was a fun car though. I really like that little thing.
Yeah, no, like I said, I don't regret it, but it's a matter of like you got to go into it. Like, what's $50,000 going to get me? Like, yeah, it'll get me this brand new Kia Stinger, but it'll also get you like a 2016 Z06 Corvette, which is better in every single category except maybe fuel economy than that Kia Stinger.
And hauling friends around.
Yeah, no, I guess that's a point. Like, I was always the guy, especially back then, if like we were going to go somewhere, I wanted people to ride with me because I hated riding with other people. Yeah. So I had that's why I got the 4-door Golf instead of the 2-door.
Yeah. I just looked up. You're right. It's like a 3.3 liter turbo engine.
Yeah. It's
Stinger.
They did have in their Genesis sedans, the first generation ones, I don't know about now. They did have a 5-liter V8 that was like 400 and something horsepower. So they do have V8 potential and to put it in things, but not in the Stinger.
I feel dirty talking about a Kia. Let's move to something else.
Absolutely. We could talk about the new Supras.
Oh man, dude, I'm starting to see those on the roads pretty often, and I'm still kind of conflicted on them. But every time I see one, I'm like, oh, I want one. They're so cool.
They're super JDM, right? Like with the curves and the big spoiler and everything. It's at my personal limit. The way the factory one looks, like I like it and it's good, and I would drive one if I could get one. But I've seen so many people just go full Tokyo drift with that thing and like just
I haven't seen all that yet. They're actually making it more like when it first launched, it was basically like you get the best one or nothing. Like there's like a handful of options, and now I'm seeing it like they actually make like a 2-liter twin scroll single turbo inline 4 for it, which it's 250 horsepower, so it'll still be fun to drive because it's probably pretty lightweight. But
right.
I kind of hate when they do that. I get why they do it because it's how you make money. The same thing with like the Mustangs and Camaros when they put the little engines in them. But
right,
this is like a true sports car. Like its heritage was like a legitimate sports car through and through, and it had no bullshit version of it. It was just Actually, I take that back. Never mind. I take that completely back because I forgot that they did make a naturally aspirated version of the 2JZ back then.
Yeah.
So well, I shot myself in the foot there.
Yeah, but I mean, there's the potential still there.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess you just don't see those anymore. They either get like swapped out or the engines get built for them. Everybody's done something to them at some point in time.
Yeah. If you have a stock one, you're sitting on $250,000 there, and I'm not.
I know. I really not exaggerating. You remember when I had the that S2000 and the Evo?
Yes. I never saw your Evo, and it really upsets me because of all your cars you've had, that is the one I care the most about.
Yeah, that's one I really do miss. That was just pure joy to drive. But I had a guy like offered to like straight trade me for his bone stock Supra. Obviously he wanted a little extra money with it, which wasn't a ridiculous amount, and for whatever reason I just really wanted a convertible for some reason, so that's why I went with the S2000. But I kind of regret it because I would have probably made a lot of money on that, even if
but you probably would have also put the same amount of money you did into the S2000 into that Supra and had twice as much horsepower. Really?
I disagree. I would have put half the money into the engine and made twice the horsepower.
Man, you got me there.
A whole lot. I mean, what I'm seeing is all these guys, they take the twin turbo setup off. They put a single
almost nobody runs that.
There. Some fuel and tuning and more or less making like respectable horsepower.
Yeah.
I think, at that point you need to invest in tires.
That's when, I don't know. I go back and forth with my love of JDM. Like you, I will tell you, have single-handedly changed my view on Hondas and JDM in general. Because like that's what I love about you is I'll get caught up in the hype about something and talk all kinds of shit on Hondas because there is a lot of shit to be talked on Honda people, which is an important distinction to make. Honda people are usually less than desirable. Honda engines and engineering are just, if you can separate the two, it'll increase your love of automobiles because like the simplicity and everything else about at least old school Japanese design is unprecedented. Maybe in Germans, but even the Germans got a little caught up in the gadgetry. Sooner than Japan, maybe.
My buddy from high school, Ryan, he got me into, he didn't really get me into it. He just showed me the same thing I showed you, was that like, yes, they are rice burners. They sound ridiculous. Most of the time they're doing ricer flybys and they're making like tons of sound and hardly going anywhere. But the fact that they weigh less than every other sports car out there and their engines hold together really well, no matter what you throw at them, within reason. It takes like a lot less power to make them a heck of a lot faster, just because they're so light. And so he used to do that, and he had we talk about it all the time. I just sent him a car today. I found like a dirt cheap Honda CRX, and I was like, man, I'm really tempted to build this because it wouldn't cost a lot of money. I knew another guy. He had a all naturally aspirated, and it was just it was a pretty well built engine, but it was all naturally aspirated, and he'd beat stock Corvettes in his little piece of shit CRX
because it weighed 1,000 pounds with him in it.
No, it was, I think it was under, like it was gutted. It was under 2,000 pounds with him in it, full tank of gas. So it was just, it's always tempting because me, I don't really care to have the nicest thing out there. It's more like the wow factor that you just got smoked by a piece of shit or something like that. It sounds fun.
Looking at it now, I think what killed him was the front wheel drive thing. Like if it was rear wheel drive, I feel like Americans would have taken it a lot better.
They weren't made to be sports cars. Like they were,
right.
You know, the Integra had a 4-door version of it. I mean, they're just economy cars, like first time cars for like 16, 17, 18-year-olds or whatever. That's what they're meant for. And they weren't meant to be
That's true.
what we're making them into. It's just,
That's true.
they're a decent enough platform. And honestly, especially for younger guys, and you're driving around these front wheel drive vehicles, they're a heck of a lot more forgiving, especially in a drag race. I mean, you get loose, instead of it going sideways, it just keeps going forward.
Right.
When you're burning out and don't know how to get traction or don't have enough tire to get traction. We did it all the time. I had a Camaro back in high school, and my buddy had the Integra, and it was stock, and he would 60 foot me every 10 out of 10 times. He would 60 foot me because he could drive decently. I had too much power for a 17-year-old, and he would just leave me, and I wouldn't catch him until like end of second gear.
Yeah, you definitely got the legs on him, but in the 8th mile, it's hard to beat.
Yeah, no, I beat him every time in the 8th mile. It's just it took most of the track for me to catch him, just because
Gotcha.
You know, I was so new, and those front wheel drives are very, very forgiving.
Yeah. I used to be super into the all-wheel drive stuff. Like, obviously I've had a couple Audis and Volkswagens and stuff, but looking at drag racing now, it is a brutal, unforgiving headache that I just don't want in my life. Like watching these Subaru guys snap axles and smoke clutches and everything else. Like,
it's definitely in theory, hard to
if it's a GTR and it's all like computer clutches and like the best technology you can throw at it, then obviously it's, you know, they're the fastest cars out there right now. But for a mere mortal, man, all like rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive is...
I think on the drag strip, when you have maximum amount of traction, you're doing all-wheel drive launches. I think when you're making a lot of power, it is harder to make that type of setup like really strong enough to hold that power over many launches. I think they end up breaking a lot more stuff than just like the basic rear-wheel drives with a 4.9-inch in the rear that's tough as hell. Like, I mean, their rear ends came in out of like diesel, pickup trucks, like just things that are made to be beat on all day.
Yeah. No, the drag strip comparison's a good thing, a good distinction to make, because on the street, something's got to give. That's what it all comes back to. It's either going to be your clutch, your tires, your drive line, something. Yeah. And when you're on a track, it's usually your tires, right? In a normal situation, like you burn out. Sure. But on a drag strip where it's designed to do everything to keep you from burning out, well, then something else is going to give. And it seems like axles and drive lines are the common weak point.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. The transmissions, and normally, I guess it depends on each vehicle where the strengths are at, but yeah, there's definitely a lot that can break. And for the first street application, I just don't see anything that is better than an all-wheel drive. It just makes sense.
For street launches, yeah, for sure. Because if you're spinning in a rear-wheel drive car, chances are the all-wheel drive will not spin at all or just minimal, and then he'll get on with his day while you're still trying to...
Especially when you're on different types of surfaces, like concrete versus asphalt and gravel and stuff. I mean, you're on any sort of fairly loose or semi-slick surface. I mean, you can forget it in a rear-wheel drive. I mean, even a front-wheel drive is going to be far superior to that in most cases.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. Well, I guess it's not crazy if you actually think about it, but front-wheel drive cars are way better in like snow and places like that, because all your weight's right over the front end where your traction needs to be.
Yeah, I'll never forget. That was like the most fun I ever had in that Evo. We had a little blizzard, I guess, that rolled through Virginia, and just playing around some ice patches and in slick areas whenever it rained. And man, I think it's so fun. It just like, just when you think you're gonna like mess up, like the car just grabs the surface and you just keep going. That was a really well designed car. It was a lot of fun to drive. It wasn't terribly powerful. I only had a few things done to it, but it's just the whole car was great.
Well, it's what Japan does best. As a stock unit, everything works perfectly together. Like, you know what I mean? There's not there's not too much power for the grip or anything else. But, you know, us being car guys, we always like to push the limits.
Sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, I feel like.
Nah, not unfortunately. Unfortunately for our bank accounts.
That's what I was getting at. I feel like I'd be a lot farther in life if I wasn't a car guy. Or, I mean, there's always these memes, all these car channels talking about like teach your son to be a car guy because he won't be able to afford drugs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's an expensive addiction. Hopefully, man. I'm trying to influence my nephew right now. Get him in it early.
So I gotta come clean on something here.
Oh no.
I talked a lot of shit about it in the past because I just couldn't get on board with it with my old school mentality. But you saw it the other day when you sent me that link.
What do we get? Are you going to talk about gay marriage or something?
Yes. I want an electric vehicle now. I'm totally on board with them. They just make sense. Every time I go to the gas pump, I'm like, damn. 12 miles per gallon my truck, and cost me a bunch of money. And I mean, and then you have the electric engine that's just like getting you instant torque, like for anything that's good. Like for towing, it's really good. And I'm excited about the new F-150 with the electric engine. Obviously, I probably wouldn't get one for a while, so I would want everybody to work out the kinks and everything.
Right.
If they're
wait for batteries not to cost as much as a house.
Right. Yeah. But man, I think I'm finally warming up to the fact that, you know, obviously electric is the future. It's going to take over eventually, but I'm starting to embrace it now. In a lot of ways, it just makes sense because, I mean, like when it comes to like trucks, everybody's all about torque, you know, having the big diesel with tons of torque. You know, they have been having these torque wars forever, and they're making over 1,000 pound-feet of torque now. When you just, you know, these like the Tesla is like, oh, here, we're going to launch our first car and it's got 700 pound-feet of torque on an electric engine. Like,
it's no big deal.
Yeah, like, yeah, this is just a little car. And like, you just imagine what their truck, I mean, their truck is the most ridiculous, stupid looking thing, and I do not want one. But just imagine what the top tiered one's going to end up being like one day, especially if they like make some sort of performance version of it. I mean, it's just going to make sense, and it's going to make towing just a breeze. And it's, I think it's going to be racing, you know, like the fastest, like I think I talked about last time, the fastest thing up the, what's that uphill race?
The Pikes Peak.
Pikes Peak. Yeah. It's electric car, man. Like it just makes sense. It's taking over. Technology's advancing, and it's going places. So I'm gonna have to start learning that if I'm gonna keep up with the car culture. I mean, I got to start learning it.
I mean, Ford's got a 1,400 horsepower all electric drag car. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yes, it is. I'm looking at it now. Over 170 in the quarter. Low 8-second passes.
That's impressive. You know, and it made me start. I was thinking about like, you know, what does the car culture do with an electric vehicle? Like, you can't go put an intake on it, can't put an exhaust on it. What do you do? And I was thinking, it's just like, you know, like your computers. You know, you got a fancy computer or something. If you're gonna play a game on it, you know, you can overclock the CPU, and you can do stuff like that. I mean, that's basically what you can do with these. It would make sense anyways. You basically buy an aftermarket programmer from somebody like Super Chips or whatever, and like they just like overclock it, or you know,
you give it more power,
more power, from the batteries.
You take the restriction off and cooling and stuff like that. Right. So, I mean, there is a certain amount that can be done, but it's nowhere near as sexy as a cold start of a big choppy BBC and hearing a fucking supercharger whine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And I think that after everybody accepts the fact that these electric engines are going to be really fast and they're going to be really capable, that's the one thing I think people are it's going to be really hard to get by.
I mean, it takes all the emotion out of it. It's so sterile. Like when you're sitting at the starting line or in your truck when you're going up a hill, especially in the Cummins, right? You hear it downshift, turbo spools, up the hill. Like it makes my pants move. I'm not gonna lie. Like just bloating up these hills under 30 pounds of boost, just up the hill. Like, yeah man, it's awesome.
That's half what it is. That's half of being a car guy right there. Is just appreciating, enjoying that, like just the sounds and the sight of it, and
the smells and just everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've always liked the smell of a diesel exhaust fumes, not like sitting there breathing it, but just when they pass by, you get a whiff of it, and it's like,
some of my fondest memories of when I was little with my dad was he ran heavy equipment, and we'd be doing side projects or whatever. We get there early in the morning and like all the equipment sitting around idling, warming up, and just like the cool, calm morning air with just a little bit of diesel exhaust in it. Oh yeah, takes me right back.
You're already making me miss my diesel trucks. Stuck here with a gasser.
Yeah. Well, who knows, man? Who knows what the future holds?
Electric. It holds electric engines.
That's true. It holds hybrids. I think hybrid is what's really going to take us the distance. You know what I mean?
Short
because
it's going to do, I think it's going to be a short-term bridge to warm everybody up to it. Like, okay, you still get your sounds and your turbos and stuff, but realistically, it's the other part of it that is the future.
The hybrid definitely maximizes the potential of the gas engine, I think, to its ultimate form. You know what I mean? It at the low end and off the hit and everywhere else that internal combustion engines tend to suffer is where it excels. And in the high end, at least currently, where electric engines suffer, that's where gasoline engines pick it up.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm wondering where it's going to actually be with legitimate race cars like NASCAR and IndyCar, where these engines are, they're at 7,000 to 9,000 RPM for hours at a time.
Right.
How long till like electric engines are going to be able to do that and take over there? Because have you ever been to a NASCAR race?
I have not. That's one I was supposed to go this year.
And I fully understand it. It's just a bunch of rednecks driving around in a circle, right? But and making only left turns. But the sound that you hear. I've been to Texas Motor Speedway several times and a couple other tracks across the nation, and it is just a crazy sound. I mean, it makes the drag strips sound like nothing when these guys, when you got 50 cars flying by in a pack at 9,000 RPM.
Oh, I can't wait, man. It's a bucket list item for sure.
It legitimately hurts your ears if you don't have earmuffs on. It's pretty crazy. And just imagine going from that to 50 electric cars passing by. Like, was it?
They've already got fully electric F1. I told you about that, right?
Yeah, I've briefly seen some articles on it, and I'll be honest, I wasn't really that interested in it, so I didn't read it.
Well, Audi pulled out of the prototype division of like endurance racing. I might be fucking this up. This was a few years ago, but they pulled out of it and it fully focused on Formula E. Like, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. I mean, that's the future. Like, even Cummins, as soon as electric thing became like a legitimate thing and they like the electric trucks were coming out, Cummins started developing their own electric engine. And, they're all, everybody's going to do it. One day Cummins, which has made diesels for 100 years or so, whatever it is now, they're just going to make electric engines. Eventually.
That's what all the successful ones are going to do, at least. Like, I'm sure a lot of them will die off, clinging to the old ways, and it'll be sad.
The only thing that's going to be really needed for that type of stuff is like industrial equipment out in the middle of an oil field that's having to run something. So you might still need a diesel generator out there, but for the most part, it's just going to make sense to get with the times. So yeah, everybody's going to start making this stuff, and it's going to start finding their ways and its way into all of our everyday vehicles. And I'm going to miss the sounds, but dang, man, I think there's going to be a lot of good things that are going to come with it.
For sure. And luckily, within our lifetime, it's pretty unlikely that we'll have none of those sounds. You know what I mean? Like, the odds of us going fully electric before you and I die are, I'd say, slim. So we might be the last generation, though.
Yeah. I think definitely we're going to be one of the last generations to really experience internal combustion to its fullest. It's going to be around for 100 more years because people collect classics and do all that stuff. But
right,
definitely a dying breed as we speak. I think still in full swing, but day by day, I think it's just going to start dwindling away.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable, right? Change is one of those things, but
yeah,
I don't know. I'm excited about the hybrid stuff. Like, you look at the McLaren P1 and the Porsche 918 and the LaFerrari, like, those are savage fucking cars, and that's just like first wave, first generation stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Norton from the Navy, from the ship. He was telling me he went to some of those like those races at the Pikes Peak, and he said these electric cars are just insanely fast. And it, as soon as he told me that, I was almost offended. I was like, no, they're not.
How dare you?
Internal combustion, they're always faster. But as soon as he said that, because I'd never been to one, so I don't know. So I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
You just hurt me mentally.
You wounded me, sir.
You wounded me. Yeah. I was like, yeah. So yeah, ever since then I've been dealing with it, man. And I finally just come to it. You know what? It's happening, and I can't do anything about it. So I'm just going to embrace it.
It's a good way to look at it, man.
Join them.
Yeah, I'm excited about the hybrid stuff. Like, the applications for off-roading and everything else are just massive. Like, when you're rock crawling, if you could just lay on the torque, just micro, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many applications that I feel like hybrid, it's going to elevate every aspect of the sport, I think.
Well, I think hybrid is going to, it's already here. So the Ram 1500, if you get the, I think it's part of the max tow package. So you get the 5.7 liter Hemi, and then it has a torque something. I don't know what it's called, or an electric something.
Yeah.
It's basically when it gets you going, they tested it, and the way it's set up, it doesn't actually make it any faster. It doesn't help you with acceleration. It just, I think, one, helps you with fuel economy for a little bit, and then it helps you pull a heavy load more easily.
It's off the line.
That's pretty cool.
Is where gas engines struggle. Like, the torque converter is just a massive power leech. So
I want to say it's something like 90 pound-feet of torque that just adds just whenever you need it.
I'm looking it up right now. Yeah,
somewhere along those. Somewhere along that line, but the whole thing just sounded pretty cool to me. It's still one of those things that I would steer away from because it's too new, and I'm worried about batteries, and I'm worried about electronics failing and that type of stuff, and costing you an arm and a leg as soon as warranties run out. But I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely going to be something cool in the future whenever they get it all worked out.
Yeah, so you can get it's called eTorque, and you can get it on
eTorque,
any model. The V6 eTorque is 12 horsepower and 39 foot-pounds of torque, right?
Okay.
Although the torque is multiplied by a belt drive, create a 90 foot-pound assist. The Hemi's eTorque motor is good for 16 horses and 49 foot-pounds of torque, multiplied through the belt drive to 130 foot-pounds.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was available on everything. That's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, but realistically, yeah, you get all the advantages of it. I mean, that's not a ton of torque, 30-something horsepower. I don't fully understand how it's multiplied, I guess, through gearing.
But I would imagine. It says through a belt drive. It doesn't get into it very much. But yeah, it's just off the line. That's like, obviously, the 5.7 Hemi has got it taken care of up top, right?
Sure.
But it's off the line is where your gas mileage gets destroyed, just everything. So if you got 90 foot-pounds just to get you rolling, just till the torque converter locks in, that is huge.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it does really make sense to, like, if I'm cruising down the road, my F-250, which gets horrid gas mileage, I've noticed that, like, if I just cruise on the highway, I can, like, real back roads here in small town, I can squeeze 17 miles per gallon out of it. And when I get there, I'm like ecstatic. But the second I come to a stoplight and then I got to press the gas again, it's just like you can just watch the average
drop
just tick down. I'm like, stupid stoplights, they kill me. But yeah, just having that to where it just really helps assist you and don't have to work the engine as hard. I could imagine it would actually save you a pretty decent amount of fuel economy in city driving.
Yes. Yeah. On the highway, hybrids, even like the Prius, gets worse mileage on the highway. So
yeah,
it's all the off
that
the line.
That was so weird.
Yeah. Like hybrids, really the bread and butter is the city driving for fuel economy stuff.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what that thing's designed for anyways.
Well, the Prius for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chevy's been playing around with this hybrid stuff for a while now. I think we talked about this before. Well, they have their all electric, but they've been making hybrid Suburbans and Silverados for a while. Like you hardly ever see them, but they've been out there, I want to say, for 4 or 5 years now.
No, I mean, I think they've been out quite a bit longer than that because I've seen the older style Tahoes, which they stopped making in 2014, and I've seen them earlier than that. So they've got to at least be 8 or more years old when they first started doing some of that. At the minimum 6 years old, but yeah, I don't know much about them. They didn't get a lot of hype. Nobody really cared about them back then. So I guess
they must not have been very good.
Maybe it's that. I don't know. I see them in Escalade. They're an option in the Escalades. I see those once in a while because they really advertise it. It's like big bold letters on the side of the lower part of the doors, hybrid.
Yeah, they really climbed them up like that. 2007. Yeah. So you were right. Yeah. 2007.
Yeah, so that's 13 years. Yeah, they've been up for a minute. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know anything about them, but I do remember seeing them all the time. And it's just one of those things that, like, especially back then, I didn't care about hybrids.
Right.
And to be honest, I'm not crazy about them now, but again, starting to warm up to the fact because just of the advantages. I mean, there's a lot of advantages in adding the best of both worlds, electric and internal combustion engine together, working together. Yeah. I mean, sounds pretty cool.
The next big hurdle, at least in my opinion, on like for hauling and trucking is they either, like for semi trucks, they either have to have some development breakthrough where they can fully charge them in like 15, 20 minutes, or a swappable battery, like a quick swappable battery. I think having that would really, at least for me, it'd make it a lot more viable of an option. Cause right now, like going on a road trip, I'm the kind of guy that stops once for fuel, bathroom, and food, and I'm just on it.
Yeah.
And like, if I have to stop for 30 plus minutes to like charge up my vehicle. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, most gas stations are in the middle of nowhere, and it's fine because you spend 2 minutes there. There's a lot of gas stations I don't want to spend 30 minutes at waiting for my battery to charge.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a hurdle right now. So,
well, and in cross-country trucking too, like all those guys, every second counts. So if you got to spend, if your truck is sitting still for 30 minutes instead of 10, like, it's just, the industry won't support it, in my opinion.
Well, so I have pros and cons on that. So I think the biggest thing on a lot of big truckers, and my knowledge is limited on it, but I do have a little bit. And, some of these bigger companies, they will actually pay their drivers slightly more to drive 65 miles an hour or less because the trucks get better fuel economy. In a typical truck, I mean, they're even unloaded, they're getting single digit fuel economy. Loaded, it's somewhere around, I don't know, like maybe like 6 miles per gallon. Unloaded, maybe around 8 or so. So the fuel cost is huge for these big trucks. And so having to wait an hour at a pit stop to fuel up really outweighs paying, $500,000, $700,000, depending on what time of year it is and how much fuel costs at the time. Really outweighs just that extra charge time. I don't know how they're going to charge you. I was actually thinking about that the other day too. Like, because if you go home, you plug it in, you're just paying whatever you pay to run your light bulbs and stuff like that. So over the course of a month, I heard that like some of these Tesla guys, like their bill is up like maybe $20 to $50 tops. Over a full month. So you outweigh that. I mean, that's a huge savings over gasoline. So it's multiplied times 100 or hundreds when you're talking about big rigs like that. So yeah, it sucks sitting there charging, especially those big batteries are going to take even longer to charge, but the cost is going to be a big difference for these big companies. So I'm sure they're going to be willing to do it. But on the flip side, on regular vehicles like Tesla has right now, I think you can do a 15-minute charge gets you roughly 75% battery life. And that's enough to just get you going again for another 150, 200 miles or so. And, 15 minutes, still a lot longer than filling up with gas, but
it's doable. That's like a reasonable number.
Terrible, for sure. Yeah. So, and you're talking about switching out batteries. The race cars actually do have that. So it's like when you pull into the pit thing, they basically just drop the battery like you're pulling it out of like a remote control car real quick, and then they plug up a new one real easy. I think it's even maybe on jacks or something. I just saw a brief video of it, and I was like, wow, they're just changing out batteries relatively quick right there. And it's so all the stuff is there. I think everything we're talking about has already been said and it's being worked on. So all these hurdles that
are we not at the cutting edge of this, Brandon? I was told we're the cutting edge right now.
Yeah. Well, as far as our viewers are concerned, yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
We are not really.
So another thing that I was just thinking about with the infrastructure you're going to need to charge all, like once we get more and more electric dependent, like the amount of power we're going to start consuming is like think about the feed you would need for these giant truck stops that have hundreds of pumps, like a Buc-ee's, right? Imagine instead of fuel, they're pumping out electricity at all those pumps at a Buc-ee's. You would have to have a freaking substation sitting right there. Like, I don't know, like it's going to take a huge change in the way we build things. Okay.
This is what's going to happen because I've already seen it all over. Okay, so you have these Tesla has these charging spaces, places like sporadically throughout the United States. Some of them are in a rural area. So if you're on a road trip, you map it out, you stop there and charge. Well, during heavy travel seasons, there's like dozens or maybe even 100 Teslas all lined up to get this charge. And so you're there all night trying to get the charge because there's only like 4 stations to charge at, and you can't go anywhere else. you're in BFE, nothing else around. There's nothing you can do. You just have to suck it up and hang out there and wait your turn. But there's a lot of other guys cruising around literally with a trailer and a diesel generator on it, charging electric vehicles.
Yep.
That is hilarious. That's funny. Because I
actually wrote a paper about that in a couple years ago for school. That's how green really is the green revolution. And like, if you live in California, where a good majority of the power is renewable and clean, then your electric vehicle is doing something. Now, let's not talk about the rare earth minerals that are like dug out of small caves in the ground by children overseas, so your battery can be made, right? But if you're like in Pennsylvania, where it's like, or not necessarily just Pennsylvania, but the Northeast, where it's like coal and oil and like not the best, greenest energy, you're doing way more harm than good by driving your fully electric vehicle.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, there's definitely trade-offs everywhere too. Like even as far as like the environment's concerned, where they mine the materials for these lithium batteries or whatever it is, like they're just, I mean, it's causing like so much more pollution than it's causing just to mine the equivalent for oil.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough, man. It's like every string you pull, there's 100 other things that are affected.
I'll say it now. I don't think anybody can really ever change my mind. There might be somebody out there willing to give it a shot, but there's no such thing as clean energy.
It's nuclear is the closest we have right now, because the output of it is containable, right? Mm-hmm. And like, but making solar panels is so toxic and requires so much pollution that it's not great, right? But we're getting better at it. We're learning how to do it better and better. But yeah, it's nuclear is really the best we have as far as renewability and stuff, and sustainability. Like solar and wind is great until there's no sun or wind. But
that's some George Jetson stuff. You got a nuclear powered flying car. I mean,
not necessarily in the car, but like as far as instead of having like natural gas, which is I guess cleaner than coal, but instead of having a big black cloud coming out, and nuclear is very safe if done right. Like a lot of people like to point at Chernobyl, but the Russians back then weren't known for doing things the best way. The containment for that was basically a shed. Like they just had it in a giant open room. It was terrible. Anyway.
Yeah, I there's not much I can really say on anything nuclear. I just don't know anything about it, to be honest. Like I really couldn't comment on anything on it.
Gotcha.
So it is cleaner.
I mean, it's give and take though, right? Because you gotta deal with the radiation and all that stuff. But there's really not. I certainly don't know enough about it to talk anymore. That's what I've read, is that nuclear is the cleanest. You can research and let me know.
Yeah. Well, I probably won't do that.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's a good place to stop it for today. Talk a little bit about the Mustang and whatnot, but try and do these more consistently. I apologize for not being on it every week, but we will do better moving forward. And
but you have an official co-host.
Yes, my one and only, my right-hand man. We'll try and get on a more regular release schedule, and Brandon will keep me in line. So everyone, thanks as always for listening to this week's episode of Chris Talks Cars. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever platform you're using. Also follow us on Instagram. I'm at Chris Talks Cars. He is Brandon Cole 67, and we will see you next week.